Hello chess friends and welcome to the Chess channel and welcome to the TCEC Season 20 Premier Division. So after many rounds we have seen really cool games. Stockfish is still in the lead, Lila C0 is on the second place. We'll probably again have the superfinals, Lila C0 versus Stockfish, and still we want to see of course some cool games, and I found really a great one. It was Stockfish NNUE versus Scorpio. Really incredible stuff against what Stockfish has prepared here. Pre-prepared this really simply Stockfish and NNE stuff. So as usual in this top energy games we have the sound round 1 and we'll give that this fight. So e4 here by Stockfish and NNE, b6, this was still pre-arranged. We have so far the open defense after d4, bishop to b7, bishop to d3. There are these aggressive lines with f5, but it leads now into a complicated game with e takes f5, bishop to g2, then we have queen to h5, g6, and similar stuff. It's playable for black, but I think black should avoid this line, because if white plays this game correctly, then black will get crushed, although white's rook is hanging here. So I think in the future on my channel we'll analyze this Owen's opening more and more, because there are lines that can happen to you. There are really aggressive lines, you have to be accurate here, but I think in this particular line, if you know the next couple more moves what you're doing, then you can win the game against black very easily. But still it's a very complex and complicated game. Here after the move bishop to d3, e6 was pre-arranged, queen to e2, knight to f6, and we have now knight to f3, d5, and now after e5 we have now the blocked pawn structure in the center, what means of course that white is coordinating the attack towards the king side, because the pawn chain is showing us the direction. Of course black will try some attacks on the queen side, because we have also the directed attack. This pawn chain is showing us also the direction. So knight to e4, we have castling by Stockfish and NNUE. After c5, here c3 is still pre-arranged, although a better move probably here is to move c4, simply deflecting this pawn from the defense of the knight. I think white should play very aggressively here. c4 maybe slightly better, and here after c3, bishop to e7 was pre-arranged. From this point on the engines calculated the position for himself. So here rook to d1, played first by Stockfish and E, which is a natural idea. We're attacking of course the queen indirectly of course, but if something dramatically changed here in the center, then the queen could be endangered on the d file. Knight to c6, knight to d2, challenging finally the knight on e4, because we are not allowing some pieces that are occupying our side of the board. If you try f5, then it's not good. E takes f6 en passant could happen, and then here you can have also some troubles around the square e6. So fixing the knight is not an option. You have to take knight takes d2, bishop to d2, and now a5. So you see, black is simply continuing to attack. It's a very natural idea. Black wants to make fast progress here with c4, b5, even b4, a4, a3, b3, really crack the position on the queen side. What white needs to do is of course a fast attack on the king side. First Stockfish and NNE played here bishop to e3, very natural too. We want simply to fix our pawn on d4. This pawn on d4 is basically our cornerstone of the attack. If we lose this pawn, then probably also the e5 could be in danger. So far Stockfish plays this protection, and we have here h6 by Scorpio. We have rook to c1, and now a4, we have knight to d2, and here queen to c8 played by Scorpio, now queen to g4. Here comes g6, and you can guess what Stockfish has in mind in a couple more moves. Something like bishop to g6, queen to g6 could happen. This seems like a natural tactical shot that white could try, but still it's very dangerous, because still black has the opportunity to escape with the move king to d7. And here after the move h4, it came to me really as a surprise. First I thought that Stockfish NNUE would play something like a3. This a3 seems for a well, bad player like me and a human of course, like a natural move. This move I think would have played immediately in order to block the queen side further. But there is one problem. Still white is much better here in this position. After even at least the Stockfish engine is evaluating the position that it's better for white. But here after the move a3, a really weird idea could happen, c4, and after bishop to c2, then b5. And what black could do here as a strategic idea is play something like afterwards queen to d7 and then queenside castling. I just wanted to imagine this game from a human's perspective. You see, then the queen side is really blocked, and maybe black could search for some counterattack possibilities on the king side with rook to g8. That's why here Stockfish played really an interesting idea, didn't lock the position on the queen side with the move a3, left simply the position and continued to attack with the move h4. We have c4, and now after bishop to c2, you see Stockfish allows now the move a3 for black, which gives now, I think, a more flexible position on the queen side, because after rook to b1, both of these files are open now, the a file and also the b file. So both engines have here some problems. Here, of course, black has this isolated pawn on b6, and also white has this isolated pawn on a2. So that's why here Stockfish decided to go into a more dynamic game, which I think was a great idea if we think about this position more, because now Stockfish has also opportunities to attack the queen side, but Stockfish has, of course, still the opportunity to attack on the king side. And the problem now for black's king is that the king is simply stuck in the center. You cannot castle anymore on the queen side because the queen side is suddenly opened, and of course you're not going to castle on the king side, because I think if you castle king side, then bishop to g6 is happening immediately. So that's the difference, I think, between like the really super engine like the Stockfish NNUE and a bad player like me. I would play a3 for sure, man. I would play it immediately just to block the queen side, and it would be such a positional mistake. Incredible what Stockfish did here so far. Really an interesting and instructive chess game. So here b5, Scorpio tries to deflect now the rook from the defense of the a2, but Stockfish accepts the challenge. Rook to b5, rook takes a2, rook to c1, and now knight to a7, attacking the rook, and Stockfish goes simply further. It's a very cool idea because Stockfish never retreats if Stockfish doesn't need to retreat. So that's why rook to b6, and there is really a nice tactical idea about this move, rook to b6. You see many pawns of blacks are on the 6th rank. So again, this idea, bishop to g6, queen to g6, followed with maybe rook to e6, is also a nice tactical shot. And here Scorpio plays the move bishop to c6, and now rook from c to b1, very nice move. And now knight to b5. If you try to take the bishop, the threat is clear. We have rook to b8. What black could do here maybe is first to deflect the rook here after king to h2, maybe to grab now this pawn, but still after rook to c8, knight to c8, white is better, but it's a really interesting position. Black has here the supported pass pawn. Black has also the opportunity maybe to hide finally with their king here to d7. This would be very interesting, although the black doesn't have anymore the queen, but has a rook, a minor piece, and a pawn for the queen. This could be a very interesting position, but still the evaluation is better for white here. So knight to b5 was played by Scorpio. If you take here this knight to b5, bishop to b5, bishop to g6 could happen, then bishop to a6 or bishop to a4. So nothing dramatically has changed. Even if you try here something like f takes g6, then rook to b5 again, and we can maybe even try queen to g6, but still the king can hide, and this could be a very complicated game. The evaluation's about equal here, so it's a playable position for black, although black has the endangered king, but black is also up the exchange. He has a rook for a minor piece, so I think black can defend this. So here after the move rook to knight to b5, here Stockfish plays finally the move bishop to g6. After f takes g6, we have now reached the critical moment of the game. Here it's time for you to pause the video and search for an immortal move. It's not the move queen to g6. It's not the point about that. So it's really brutal move that Stockfish has prepared here. Really nice tactical shot. So try to see now the best next move. It's really brutal. It's something that I'm not sure how many of us would see. It's a nice tactical shot, really. Okay, the move here that simply opens the position is the move knight to e4, and it's really a sick move when you think about it more. It opens really all of the diagonals, all of the files all over the board, because if you take the d takes e4, then you have really some problems with the move d5, and of course e takes d5 doesn't work. If you try bishop to d5, then you get rook to b5. You can maybe hide with your king, but now again this idea rook takes d5, and you see after something like e takes d5, queen to g6 could happen, and you have to move your king to f8. Now bishop to c5. There are also some other ideas. Bishop to h6 is better when it comes to evaluation. The engine gives here the bishop to h6 move like the best move, but I like here the move bishop to c5. It's even more attractive because it's a double deflection. If you take with the queen, of course, then you have some checkmates here. Rook to b8, you can only play like this, and queen to f6 will happen. So if you, for instance, try to take with the bishop, then rook to f6 will happen, and again, so you have some problems. You again going to be checkmated. So here after the move knight to e4, really there's nothing that can be done. Here rook to b5, rook to a5 was played by Scorpio, protecting the knight on b5, but the only way to defend this position is probably to play the move king to d7, and this leads now into a complicated game. After rook to b5, bishop to b5, rook to b5, king to c6, and now rook to b1 is probably a drawish line, which black should have played probably, but there is also now sick line with the move rook to b8, and it's really weird, because after this move white is again slightly better, because after queen to b8 we have now queen to e6. The queen is now deflected from the defense of the pawn here, and now after move king to b7 we can take the bishop, and now knight to c5 is very complicated. Rook to a1, king to h2 could happen, and now after move queen to b6 we can attack both of these pawns. Here the pawn on g6, also the pawn on d5. Queen to c6 has to be played probably, but now we can take out now this pawn, and this is now very complicated to defend, I think, for black. White can create here a pass pawn situation. White can protect with bishop to f4, bishop to g3. So this pawn, of course, has to be fixed first, but I think we can create here a very annoying pass pawn. So again, white is much better, but at least this move king to d7 gives black some kind of an opportunity to play. Here Scorpio played really a bad move, rook to a5. Now the game is over, because now finally queen to g6 happens. You see the knight still stands here. Here after move king to d7 we have queen to f7, and again if you take then you risk some ideas again with the move e6. If you take with the bishop, then again we can take rook takes b5. If you take with the pawn, then e6 will happen. We can pass through with this pawn. So again, you cannot take the knight here in the game. Scorpio tried king to d8, but now knight to d6. Very nice. You see now the knight comes on a very nice square. If you try knight takes d6 here, then we have e takes d6, bishop to d6, and now rook to c8. c6 is happening, attacking the queen on c8. If you take, then queen to f6, the fork, and again it's simply game over. So you cannot take this. After move knight to d6, if you try bishop to d6, then you get queen to f6. The bishop is deflected from the defense of the f6, and again you get the fork, and it's simply game over. So it's really bad position. Knight to d6, queen to c7 was played, and now Stockfish NNUE simply takes here bishop to d6. But now again this idea queen to f6. Again, if you try to take with the knight here instead of the bishop, then you see we have here the fork, e takes d6. If you take with the queen, then rook to b8 can happen. Here after king to b7 we can play bishop to f4. That's very cool. After queen to f4, queen to e7, it's really bad. And here after rook to b7 we have even the checkmate here on d7. So great tactics all over the board here. After move queen to e6, bishop to d6, but now queen to f6 was played, and here e6, that's even more accurate, because if you just take the rook, we'll simply take out the rook and it is somehow to protect. But here e6 first, getting the king towards the 8th rank, that's the most important thing. And now this queen takes h8 comes with a check, which is of course a huge difference. King to e7, and now bishop to h6. Queen to b6, taking out the rook, but now the queen comes here on a very, very aggressive square. Queen to f8, the king is endangered. King to e6, queen to c8. Here, if you try bishop to d7, then it's a forced checkmate, because queen to g4 and queen to g8 attacking, you have taken this square for your king. The king is trapped here. You have only this square on f6. Now bishop to g5, king to f5, and now queen to f7, again a check, and here queen to f3, it's checkmate. So after move queen to c8, you see you cannot protect with the bishop, you have to play king to f6. But now rook to e1, very cool move, cutting off here the e file. And look at these pieces, they're all on the queen side, they're not protecting the king. The harmony between this queen, bishop, and the rook is simply too much to handle. The king is naked here, bishop to h2. This was a very cool move by Scorpio. After king to h2, maybe here queen to c7 is a possibility to trade off the queen, so you don't want to take. King to h1, here bishop to e8, queen to g4, threatening now queen to g5. Then if you, for instance, play something like bishop to g6, then queen to g5, you have only one move. Then here queen to e7, then king to g8, and here queen to g7 is again a checkmate. So that's why here bishop to d4, desperate try. Again rook to e5, we have rook to a1, king to h2. Here again a check, not a problem, but it leads now just simply into a checkmate after queen to f5. So the game was over, and the Stockfish played again. You see such a beautiful game, really some nasty tactics all over the board. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really wild stuff that Stockfish has prepared here. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series. Here is the link. And if you want to see the best chess games by humans, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with more videos, and chess is the best, of course.